Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology, and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com. Hello and welcome to SciTech Culture, the show where we discuss science, technology, and culture in its myriad of forms. My name is Ben Warner, and I'm joined once again by my good friend and colleague, Steve Kern. How are we today, Steve? Looks like you got a nice day there.
It's a very nice day. Hi, Ben. Hi, everyone. Yeah, lovely day for a STC chat.
Absolutely. So before we get into our main topic, we're going to cover just a few little ones that caught our eye in the past week or so. We'll return to the old Apple versus FBI thing, the story that basically won't go away because it's just hasn't been resolved, and there's a couple of little fallout things from that. Boston judge ordered Apple to help the FBI access an iPhone 6, but it fell short of forcing the decryption. So essentially that Apple could get the data off the phone, but it wasn't compelled to decrypt it, which kind of made it pointless anyway, because unless they outsourced the decryption to someone else. And another one that, as a follow-on to the specific case with the San Bernardino shooter, was the Apple said it wouldn't sue the FBI to find out how they hacked into the iPhone 5C.
Now that's an interesting one.
But their rationale there was that the hack has a short shelf life because the 5C, basically any model after the 5C, can't be hacked in the method using the method that they used.
Okay.
But it's
so
interesting.
I don't know how they did it then.
Yeah, well, I guess they figure we don't care because the 5C is on its way out of the system anyway. So. But still, I don't know. I kind of find it hard to believe Apple wouldn't be curious about that.
Well, they must know how it could be done because there's probably only one or two ways.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure they know exactly how you'd think they'd know how to get into their own phones because how do you fight or how do you put in strong encryption and strong security if you don't know how people would hack into it?
Yeah, true.
But I just don't think this story is just going to just keep going on. And we haven't hit that critical mass point where, something, it's like the make or break thing, where a law has to be written or something changed or something disastrous occurs. Like it's like they both had a standoff and then they both walked away.
Yeah. I also think that we're not hearing quite the whole story. So who knows what's actually going on in the background.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll switch gears and move to Facebook. They had their developer conference recently, and just go through a couple of the things that they've got there. It seems to be a lot to do with camera integration, video integration. There's quite a few little parts there. Yeah. Augmented reality in Facebook. So what? Facebook becomes like its own virtual world. That would be that'd be interesting.
Well, and Messenger becoming a platform, just not a message service.
I was wondering if the actual Messenger part was actually one of the most important parts because from what they're saying, 60 billion messages a day that they're processing. So many people are using it, and plus they've got Facebook Messenger was said to have 700 million monthly active users. But only a few months later it ballooned to 900 million. I mean, that's an astonishing figure, and it almost kind of makes, if they monetize that correctly, it's the Facebook website thing can be just a side project.
Yeah, look, I have to say that over the last few years, I personally have probably seen as Facebook is not that adventurous, not that interesting. Google gets all the headlines with loons and going into outer space and whatever other ideas they have. But I think this was a real turning point for Facebook. They've obviously spent the last 3 or 4 years, probably since, in fact, their public listing, working really hard on their business model. I personally haven't given them much credit. They've obviously thought through it long and hard. They're focused on their core business. And I tell you what, I think they're about to blow Google, Microsoft, and everyone else out of the water.
I think where they also might slip under the radar is that they've bought apps and expanded into areas without putting the Facebook name on it. So, for instance, you've got WhatsApp, which is the one we were referring to there. Oh,
That's right.
as another one that which had 1 billion users as well, apparently.
Yeah.
Instagram, which I mean, I think quite a few people know that Facebook owns that, but maybe they don't. And all these other sort of apps that they've brought into the Facebook fold. And maybe that's where it is. That's where their future is. They're sort of expanding into little areas that might not seem as obvious to you if you don't know that they owned it.
Well, I actually think, and I only thought about this because I got involved with a little bit of the developer conference and try to soak up what they're doing. I reckon they're actually creating the operating system of the future. You and I have spoken before about how we use our digital tools less and less, only for specific purposes. The rest of the time we're using apps like the ones we're using now on Skype and those sorts of things. Microsoft is creating an enclosed environment where you can have all your communications, all your news feeds, everything brought to one location. And it's conceivable that in the same way I think that Microsoft locked down the PC in the 90s, I think Microsoft is locking down the post-PC era, and I don't think anyone saw it coming. I could be wrong. I'd be interested to hear what anyone's got to say, but they're basically in control of our communications. Google is a search engine.
So Facebook is getting that going down that path?
Well, yeah. I think the messenger thing's key. I think you'll see that you'll have advertising. You'll have talking bots like Tay on Messenger telling you things while you're talking to other people. I think Messenger now has the potential to blow Twitter right out of the water. And it's all run by one organisation. So, and they did it really, I think, by stealth. They looked like they were just doing stuff. But if they really start to pull this off, and they've gone really hard at this conference to encourage developers, and the feeling, the emotion that they generated was like Steve Jobs, like 10 years ago. So I'm very keen to see what Facebook are going to come up with.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, just two more before we get on to our main topic. I've had to laugh at this one. Well, it's not really funny, but the Bitcoin exchange EGOT, which is having a bit of financial trouble, shall we say. And I think... I was kind of through various means. I've got a couple of Bitcoins in the wallet there somewhere. I was just sort of hanging out for when they were predicting it to be 50 or 60 grand a Bitcoin in terms of value. But I don't think I'd be going through these guys to try and exchange it though.
I think the thing about Bitcoin is that if you really understand it and what it is, it's very secure. So you can trace all the Bitcoins, all of that sort of thing. If you've got some in your wallet, et cetera, as long as you don't leave them online where people can stick their fingers into your digital wallet, you're okay. But, honestly, there's a lot of people involved that don't really understand it. There are people setting up exchanges around Bitcoin like Ingot that, the exchange is the vulnerable part, not the Bitcoin. You'd have to be very game to get involved with Bitcoin as far as I'm concerned at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. All right, and one of our last quick little news stories here. SpaceX rocket successfully lands on ocean drone platform for first time. I actually picked this one out more from the fact that it's SpaceX private company, yeah? So that's kind of what interested me in the story, I think. It's... there was a time when it would only be NASA, for instance, or a government agency in another country that would run this sort of thing. But seeing the private sector coming in is what I think is interesting, and there's that transition occurring.
Oh, yeah. Look, I think what we're seeing is an amazing repositioning of space. Once upon a time, only governments could fund this sort of exploration. NASA's now looking deeper into space, big missions, that sort of thing, and they're leaving the low Earth orbit, the space tourism, down to the privateers, which is amazing. Yeah. And one other thing I'll add is, did you see the Stephen Hawking matchbox-sized spacecraft?
No, I didn't know.
What a genius. Yeah. It's so obvious. Send a matchbox to Alpha Centauri in 20 years because no mass in a matchbox. Great idea. And all of these ideas are now possible. No one could have worked out that 20 or 30 years ago because of the thinking was still the big payloads getting us into space. This is great. And the technology to use a laser to accelerate it to a fifth of the speed of light. Wow. And that means we'll get to Alpha Centauri. And if you put a little camera lens in it, or make a big lens as big as the matchbox, can you imagine the pictures we'll get back?
Yeah.
And if there are planets there, we'll see those planets. It's going to
be good.
The way we see the universe around us.
Yeah, absolutely. All righty, we'll go into the second half of the show now, and we're going to concentrate on one particular topic, and the question underlying it is, do we value content anymore? Now, just to sort of start with this, we were just talking before we got on, I'm got a bit of a sort of a relaxed weekend that I've been enjoying so far, and I happened to pull out my old CD collection, which was sitting in boxes, and discovered some that I'd forgotten about and all that sort of thing. So, I'm busy converting them into iTunes so I can play them off my phone and things like that. But the interesting thing was, because I've a lot of the music I've got is either streamed or it's some sort of file format. The idea of picking up a physical copy, it reminded me of the value that's associated with that, or that is implied with it. So it would have meant that I would have had to have got out of my house, go down the street, or drive somewhere to go to a physical store to buy it, pick it up. That felt tangible, whereas the file formats today don't have any tangibility, because like you were saying before we got on, if you lose it, you just re-download it again from the cloud service that's there. Now, that's great, but I'm just wondering that, when you pay for a physical thing like that, it feels like you've bought something of value, whereas with a file format that can be easily replaced, I can imagine why some people are getting to the point where they're not even interested in paying for these things anymore, because it almost feels like it has no value. So why? And you can get your people that pirate anyway. And just as a starting off point, movies are going that way, TV shows and all that, and we've spoken about that before. That you don't need to go to the cinema, because in a couple of months' time you can just stream it straight off of Netflix, and you're not having to pay for it in the sense of a single viewing of it. You're just watching it as part of your subscription kind of thing. So it doesn't feel like it's got the same value as it did before. We'll move into a couple of other areas too where this might have applied. But what do you think about that in terms of the? Is it just a perception thing that we're dealing with?
Even if it is a perception, I think it's real. There's something about hard copies. I think we still see it in the art world, visual arts, paintings, sculptures. People, some people still value them and buy them. But really, if you get a digital reproduction of Van Gogh and say you could 3D print it with all the brush strokes and everything, do you need the original? Yeah. We've never encountered a situation like that before, so it's very interesting. More and more, we're going to be engaged digitally. We were talking about Facebook before. What if I can travel to the pyramids using Oculus? What if
you could go to Mars with Oculus? Yeah.
Do I need to go after that?
Yeah.
Today it still sounds like a bit of a ridiculous question. Of course you do, to get the real experience. But like so many things, 30 years down the track, maybe you don't. 30 years down the track, you could be better traveled in VR than you could ever possibly in real life, unless you spent your whole life traveling. So it really begs the question, what will that do to us? And this extends to art. People, I think, used to really work at being a band, and we seem to have moved a lot more to image and digital image. And now music isn't just about the music, It's about the visual clip that goes with the music. And then once again, there's no physicality to it. You press a button and there it appears. So I don't know, Ben. I think it's just the way we perceive it. And that's right.
It's like if you bring up that travel example that you brought up there, that it's like if you were able to go into some sort of augmented reality or virtual reality world where you can see exactly what it is, and it's almost, well, say if it gets to the point where it's indistinguishable from the real thing. There's something about the essence of the traveling to there and all of that entails, because traveling isn't always, there's some parts of travel that isn't fun, but that also makes part of the experience of journeying there. You're missing the essence of the journey kind of thing, and that's what seems to apply to like across the board to everything we're talking about. It's that essence that's not there.
Exactly, but if we invent teleport and you can teleport to London instantly, then I guess the question is, I don't know, what does it do to that experience? It makes going to London not special anymore. In fact, if we had that, then the whole concept of probably big cities wouldn't matter. Big cities are there because we think there is more opportunity in a big city. There's more chance to meet, to do, to exchange in a big city than there is obviously in a tiny little hamlet in the middle of nowhere. But if we could move instantly from anywhere, then I guess the idea would be just to evenly distribute dwellings all over the globe and press a button to where you want to go.
Yeah.
So physicality, I think, is a big thing. It's a big part of our world. And, we're talking now about virtual reality and its impact. But what we're dealing with right now is a virtual reality in music. Once upon a time, only 100 years ago, you probably would have had to have gone and seen a band play if you wanted to experience music.
Yeah.
Then the whole process has been basically removing us from that as well. People used to go and see plays. Now you can just press a button and you can watch a screenplay.
Yeah.
So, it's. Do you think these are stepping stones on the way, and that's that lack of tangible reward for these things?
Or maybe we just it's a shift. We culturally, it becomes a shift in how we consume all of these things, and how we maybe we assign a different way of valuing it in the future. Again, we'll just with the travel thing, because it's a really good example. It's sort of like that, starting to become that already, because I remember growing up that the concept of flying around didn't feel anywhere near as accessible as what it is today. So now going between, particularly with capital cities in any given country, if you're flying around, it's no big deal now. It's like a bus ride sort of thing. Everyone, it's almost within everyone's grasp to do it now, whereas it was a lot more expensive back when I was growing up. So it's going that route. But actually, one area that maybe if we can bring this in, we were speaking about news a bit before as well, and this kind of comes into it too, that just to sort of put you in the picture, we've got a news subscription in the office that I'm in, and one morning I happened to pick it up, and I was having a look at each of the papers, and they were really thin, for one thing, and the other thing was the stories on them are not what I would call journalism that makes a difference.
Or the best of the internet.
Yeah, like they're more worried about how the host of the new footy show went in the ratings, rather than some breaking story in a country that could affect us in some significant way or whatever. And I just found that interesting, that the news thing is another side of it that seems to be getting diluted these days, because you got this sort of twin effect of people not wanting to pay for it. Because they can get so much of it for free on the internet, regardless of whether it's a paid organisation or not. And that is affecting, that's the flow-on effect, it's affecting the quality of the news that's going out there. And how is that affecting society? Because news has a very important role in society, in reporting stories, and keeping the public aware of various things, and calling out things when they should be called out. But I'm just wondering if, again, like, where's that all gone? The classic example is what's happened to a current affair in Australia. In the 90s and before, it was it could sway public opinion. You tell a millennial that a current affair actually swayed public opinion, and they'd probably laugh at you these days, because it's just become so tabloid.
And it is, as we were saying before, it's 24 hours and then it's move on to the next. And then when they come back to the same story with different people a little while later, it's like a new story again, and it disappears.
Yeah.
You're right. There doesn't appear to be any lasting or long effect.
And
tangible result. People don't seem to be interacting with whatever it is anymore. They view it as voyeurs and then move on to the next thing.
Absolutely. Or is it more that saying something like the case of news, and maybe this applies in other areas too, that it's more of the immediate reaction you have. So if a story breaks, and quite often it could even happen on social media, and then our interaction with it is where the substance of it now lies, not in the traditional hard-hitting journalist goes out to find the story and exposes it after months of research and chasing everything down. There was, the Panama Papers thing aside, there was another one I remember seeing that The Age broke about oil deals and things like that ran for a couple of weeks, which was, that to me seemed like the old school big story that used to get, and the irony is that they covered it on the news kind of thing, and they were like making it sound like it was this amazing thing, and that it even occurred. And obviously the old school journalists are going, this is how it actually used to happen all the time, and the new guys are like, wow, that's a real story kind of thing. So it's it's I don't know where that leads us, I guess, but maybe it's more the immediate news and our interaction with it as it's developing, rather than us getting reported on when so much of it's occurred.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a big shift, big change in the way we're doing things. So, and the way news is affecting us. And I think it is this temporary thing. We live in a very immersive digital world. We're getting more immersed. And I think that's affecting our perceptions and the way we interact and the way we value things around us.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Steve, just to finish up, I'll have to just say I'm going back to my CD collection later just to rip it all into an electronic format. So I don't know what that says about me, but there you go. I'm participating.
Enjoy it, mate. Enjoy it.
Absolutely. All right, we'll wrap it up there. Don't forget our website, SciTechCulture.com. You can get all of our links and content there. You can interact with us on Twitter, Google+, and Facebook, so I'd love to hear from you. And if you or anyone likes the types of topics where Steve and I cover on a regular basis here, feel free to send them to the website. You can watch us on YouTube, Vimeo, and listen to us on our audio feeds. We'd appreciate that. It's always good to interact with people in this environment that we've got going. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.